What is up, adventurers? And today we're going to be going over another tank video, but mixing in something new that we haven't talked about a whole bunch here, which is gearing. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, the gear tracking, whether you like it or not, but crafting has come up multiple times in recent posts. So let's take a look at tanking first and then that. So let's jump right in. And by the way, if you've been enjoying the videos, thank you for all the support. Sponsors have been rolling in randomly, of all things. So I mean, you may be seeing that on the channel soon. I might be trying out some of those. Just know immediately that I'm a sellout. I guess. I don't know. I just want to try new things and see how it goes from there. But I'm super excited to be able to share content, but also make more new content for you guys. So let's see how that goes. But jump into the video real quick. So what we're gonna see here in this post is kind of stuff we've seen before, but the post says, okay guys, is it me or are tanks just taking too much damage? I'm a prot paladin. I mean, that's where it should start. Obviously, I think that's all you need. I'm a prot paladin. That's the only thing it needs to say. I figured from the very beginning I was taking too much damage. I get it. It should be hard most of the time, but I managed to survive and damage until I put up some mitigation. Should be hard to tank. But dang, every single pack, I have to pop a defensive, though I'm in consecration. All my passive, the active mitigation is up. Tank buster mechanics sometimes just straight up one-shot me. I don't press a big cooldown, like 50% reduction, even though I'm quite sure that I should be surviving below but manageable HP. During some tank busters, I cannot even trust my lay on hands because I straight up get one shot. For example, the Edna Stone Vault. I will say the Edna Stone Vault is largely on your healer, just because it's about timing your dispels. A lot of that, survivability is very reliant on healer, I believe, in Stone Vault, just in general. I just timed a +9 Grim Batal and it was way too stressful. At the beginning, I was shrugging it off, saying that my gear is low, but I started to put some best in slot stuff. Only my shield is 600 item level. Sometimes I think it might be the problem. I will say, sometimes item level is kind of wonky. For a while, I was like, I'm going to refuse to upgrade my gear to that like 619 benchmark. Just out of concept, I want to see how far I can get my gear up, or if I can get stuff best in slot first, because I don't like the concept of getting a piece of gear and then getting an upgrade. And it's like, well, this isn't my best in slot, so I'll just keep my old and upgrade it. I didn't like that concept, so I was like, let me see how far I can get. And truly, once I went from the small barrier of like 6, like 14, 15 to 6, 19, 20. It changed so drastically. It really does change so drastically, despite it being such a small amount of numbers. The damage intake is not smooth, and I'm getting tired of getting hit to 1 HP and then full and then 30% again. Talk to Death Knights. I'm sure they would humble you a bit. Reactive healers with big bubble buttons, such as Monk, can manage it, but sometimes we clash defensives, and yeah, it absolutely disgusting. Yeah, so I generally enjoy tanking and healing, but this is so sad to play. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I would say a lot of this comes with the class. I think that certain classes just, their class difference is survivability versus damage. And I believe that's the case here. But it can be sort of demoralizing whenever this happens, a number of times. But yeah, no, this is how Mythic Plus this season. I would say the other thing is dungeon design in Mythic Plus this season. It's not very accommodating to this matter. You don't have ways to offset it. You just have to be able to deal with it depending on what your class is. I mean, to be honest, with Warrior, it's like you have a lot of mitigation that you can pop for like your tank busters, which is great. But the DPS for Warriors isn't great as a protection warrior. So you definitely have to roll into your procs very well. Otherwise, you immediately will fall behind and as far as damage goes. And I know that's not necessarily the most important thing as a tank, but whenever you're considering like the higher tiers of gameplay, you still want to participate in that regard. And I think as tanks, you have this sort of like, this might not be everybody, but I think that most tanks have this kind of thing in the back of their mind where there's like, I want to be able to make up for somebody who's not doing as well as they should. And that even goes with DPS. You know, we have self-healing, very few, but we survive somehow. But same thing with damage. I think that tanks are kind of that glue that holds the group together, and so it does feel bad whenever you're falling behind because like maybe you're taking too much damage, so then now the healer's healing you more than the DPS, so it just feels bad, and it doesn't feel good. And it's not necessarily you, so it's not you. The tank changes at the beginning of the expansion are a miss. Yeah, last in Prot Warrior, I know will suck for the rest of the expansion, but it was nice this season being a brick wall. The compensation for being a brick wall is the second worst damage and the second worst utility, sadly. Yeah, I mean, I would say the major downside I don't think a lot of people talk about Prot Warrior is that you do have utility. It's just that your utility, whatever utility you're choosing, is at the cost of another utility. So like you don't get to have all of them. You get to pick one of them. So I either get to pick AoE, I get to pick Thunderous Roar, I get to pick Dispel, I get to pick maybe reduced cooldowns, or I get to pick longer shield wall uptime, shield block uptime. So it's like it's very much trade-offs, and I'm not a big fan of that. That you just kind of have to deal with that. It's not that the spells are bad without it, it's just that they really come online once you have that spec, and then you just feel like you're not really doing as much or really that significant without that spell. So it's kind of a bummer, because if you had both, then it'd be great, you know. So that's the main thing that it feels. So I do understand this perspective of basically feeling very weak, especially with paladins. I feel like paladins, you have to pre-game a lot of your defensives, and that's unfortunate. During some tank busters, I have to trust my lay on hands, yeah, or I can't even trust my lay on hands. This one might be a healer issue. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's totally a healer issue. I'm not going to blame healers for the issue, but the main thing is that when it comes to Mythic Plus, coordination and communication are key, but now more than ever, these are things that aren't really prevalent in WoW nowadays. So what would be optimal is that whenever you're experiencing specifically with Edna, is that you space out the damage dealt. So it's not as immediate, and it's not everybody getting absolutely nuked by it. But is the communication there or possible in groups that just don't do it? I mean, is the solution proximity chat? Maybe, but I think unfortunately coordination and communication are the things to resolve this, and often it's not always possible, or the game doesn't project those things in an obvious way. It doesn't say, or it doesn't tell you that like hey, you have a severe damage like damage dealer on you. Make sure to space this out as to not overstress your healer. It's not 100% clear. It's not made in a way that's just obvious, and yeah, it can very much one-shot you if you're not careful. I would say most of the time it's not hundreds to zeros that happen. It's whenever you're like 70%, and then it nukes you. I mean, in a sense, it's a one-shot, but it's like everything else is that cumulative 30%. You know, you stood in a fire for a little bit too long. Maybe you got hit by a crit. You know, that just by a bad pull, or maybe you turned a little too soon. You zigged when you should have zagged, or something like that. But yeah, it does feel very one-shot heavy, and very much a lot of tank busters that feel very, very punishing. The second post I wanted to talk about, and I told you it was going to be a bit about crafting, is this says 636 eye level main, 78% of my possible crafted gear is crafted. I exclude trinket slots, Cersei circlet, and the 4-piece tier calculation. Obviously, I mean especially when you can upgrade your items to these slots anyways. I mean, like, what's the big deal? So yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm sure that other low-level Mythic Raiders and plus pushers are having the same experience. Having hero track be 13 item levels lower than Mythic has the track has made players who don't clear 8 out of 8 Mythic raid every week entirely reliant on Vault RNG or crafted gear to get their tune. And honestly, I didn't realize this until just recently. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna finally do crafting. And at first I didn't do it well. But then now I'm crafting like the 636 pieces, mainly my van braces, my belt. And after I did it, I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have to worry about these no more, because it was so frustrating to get the pieces. And when I did, I'm like, oh, this is an abyss piece. I mean, I just said it a few minutes ago. It's like, it's not abyss piece, so it's like, oh well, I mean, this is an upgrade, yeah, sure, but it's not abyss. So it felt weird, enchanting it, gemming it, etc. And so it felt super duper weird. And then on top of that, it's like the RNG luck, and then whenever you're in Mythics, you just get nothing. That just feels bad. In the past, hero track was only 6 item levels below Myth, which allowed people to actually utilize hero track items farmed from Mythic Plus that were itemized better than Mythic track items. It also made crafting items while you have hero track somewhat useless, since that was only 3 items higher than hero track. Okay, yeah, so he's like, why would you want to do that? All I'll say, the current game still feels terrible. You used crafted gear to cover up the few holes in the heroic raid clears, vault, and M+ spamming. I mean, I would say he's still doing that. Now with such a massive difference between hero and Mythic track items, 2/3 of those gearing methods are obsolete. Crafting gear is primary method for most M+ pushers gearing. Yeah, I would say, now that I know what I know now, that sounded weird. But now that I know this, I honestly feel very much the same. I wouldn't say for every possible piece, but I mean for prot, I would say you're worthwhile crafting at least. There's at least 6 pieces worth crafting, and I believe there's like 3 that are bis. 1, 2. Yeah, 2, 3 if you include like DPS specs as well. So yeah, that's unfortunate, because I mean, I think it's the cape as well, and then boots, I believe, are the other ones. So like belts, fan braces, and then I think the charged claymore as well. So there's quite a few that you can throw in there. So that is, I would say that's not too much for being this. But I would say that a lot of people can get away with just crafting their personal stuff, doing their professions, and focusing that. And it is sad that you can spend a full week doing your dailies to get any money you need for your crafting professions, leveling that up, and more likely get a chance of getting a piece of gear than from getting it from weeks sometimes of doing Mythics. At a certain point, you're not getting anything, and you're more worthwhile getting your tokens. Personally, I don't know if this is a smart idea, but I've just been doing the tokens, and then what I'll do is I'll add sockets onto stuff, or like just upgrade my bis that I have. That just seems like the better move for me right now. Just because I'm not likely to get a better piece of gear than what I already have. So it's just kind of the way it is. I geared the 630, a couple of crafted pieces, and once per Mythic Plus Vault loot. Didn't feel like crafting was my primary progression compared to the Vault. That said, I still agree with OP that this is a huge problem. While there is something to be said for the predictable increase through grinding crest, having my main M+ reward while doing 10s a week, be filling the vault and getting some crests feels terrible. Yeah, I know that does feel bad. The season 619 was a weird sticking point as a M+ player, saving for crafted items, meaning that I didn't want to use gilded crest to upgrade hero gear past 4 out of 6. Yeah, there was no point. So champion gear was basically just as good as hero gear. Yeah, I think it's like I think that like hero gear, like 3 out of 6 was very common in my inventory for a while, and then champion 6 out of 8 was basically, that's where I was sitting for a little while. So hero gear was pointless, and the problem was hero gear was basically all the rewards for N+ dungeons. Something in the structure needs to be changed so at the end of the dungeon loot wasn't worthless. Yeah, that, I mean, you can say like gear for alts, but honestly, I think something that's missing from the game is just getting something and feeling successful from a positive clear, other than just, oh, I'm gonna get a chance at gear. You know, it doesn't feel very good to do so. I crafted almost everything trying to get to 10s. To fill vaults pugging was really too hard to start season, which led to not filling slots. Could easily go smack some 8s and 9s to craft stuff, but by the time you crafted a few pieces, it got harder to target slots through the vault, so you end up crafting more. It's like an addiction. It's a little wild. Another thing most people forget are tertiaries. The difference between a 636 crafted item and a 639 myth track item with avoidance is huge. A bit more stamina and a 1% less AoE damage can easily make the difference between dying and surviving. I mean, we're talking about a minutia, but I get what you're saying. Oh, and over the course of a few months, you can easily obtain 2 to 4 items with avoidance. In my opinion, this should be an item obtainable from the vault that lets you put leech avoidance speed on a few item slots. I like this comment for that last part there, because I do think that something that does feel awkward and sort of strange about gearing in general is that nothing in the game really like educates you or informs you what you're supposed to do once you have your bis. I do think having something integrated that allows you to like transfer enchants, for example, or have a way for you to, I don't know, I guess I have a way to like get those things to your gear so that changeover to your next piece of gear doesn't feel as detrimental to have to purchase it, or just routes to going, hey, you have the piece of gear you need. This is your bis. You don't need an add-on to do this, hopefully, is the idea. And then giving the necessary stats that you can go from there. I mean, enchanting is already basically self-service. Enchanting is like the only interactions I have with it is purchasing scrolls and then putting in crafting orders for gilded crests, which I'm sure is very similar for most crafting professions. So I just feel like this is definitely down that road where it's just like we need to put something there that feels better than at the end of the dungeon just not really getting anything from it, because it kind of feels sad at a certain point where it's just like it doesn't feel worth it, and then crafting doesn't feel as good. And at least with crafting, you feel like you're in control of your statting, whereas when you're just getting the gear and getting bis, when you're getting the gear and you still feel weak, like we looked in the first post, it feels terrible, because it's just like, I have all the best gear, what am I doing wrong? You know, like what is going wrong here? At least with crafting, you can have like a bit more understanding of where you're supposed to I guess where you can like sort of place yourself amongst the world. So that being said, I hope this was helpful for you in some way. What do you think are the solutions? What do you think is the main issue affecting tanks right now? And then what do you think is the main issue affecting gearing right now? Is it crafting? Is it the fact that, you know, crafting stands at a standstill, or in the point between basically hero, where most people stop, in Mythic, and it's actually pretty reliable for all that it's worth? Or is there something else that we maybe need to do, maybe with Mythics, to make them more valuable, so people even at the top of the tiers can have something at the end of that dungeon that feels worthwhile? So let me know in the comments. Of course, like the video, subscribe to the page while you're at it, and I will be seeing you guys in the next stream or video. But until next time, I fully brain shut down right there. Until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.